And it is subdivided into Indian subregion, Indo-China subregion, Ceylonese subregion, and Indo-Malayan subregion. So Indo-China subregion means it is between the China and India. Ceylonese means it's Sri Lanka, and Indo-Malayan region, it covers the region between Malaysia and India. So Gavialis species, orangutan, then big-headed turtle, then gibbons, colloc, peacock, then one-horned rhinoceros, shield tail, then spiny dormouse, tarsier, Indian elephant, and tree shrew. So these are the animals we see in this region. Then Australian region, it covers Australia, New Zealand, New Guinea, Tasmania, Moluccas, and neighboring islands. So it is partly tropical and partly temperate, and New Guinea is tropical and is covered by rainforest. North part of the Australia is tropical, but the interior part is arid in region. Tasmania is cool and temperate. Fauna is unique and primitive here, whatever the in this region. And more peculiar feature is absence of higher placental mammals. And the region contains primitive forms or marsupials or monotremes, okay, found in this region. Again, this is subdivided into 4. Austromalayan subregion, Australian subregion, Polynesian subregion, and New Zealand. So here the animals which are present are marsupial mouse, marsupial mole, kangaroo, flying fangler, wombat, spiny anteater, Australian lungfish, tiger snake, skink, duck-billed platypus, loris, honeysucker, cockatoo, cassowary, lyrebird, pygmy parrot, emu, etc. So these are the animals which we see in this particular region. Now we will look into the animal distribution. So the animal distribution is of 2 types in the space. So in the space means it is both within water and on the land. So it can be horizontal and vertical. So that can be divided into like geographical distribution and bathymetric distribution. And this is one type of distribution, and other is distribution of animals along the time, which is called geological distribution. And the pattern of distribution is cosmopolitan, discontinuous, and bipolar distribution, which we'll be discussing in detail. Now, what are the factors that are affecting this animal distribution? So we see animals which are present in different types of habitats, like in deserts, water, then cold climates, hot climates. So we can see in different regions, different areas, and different localities, we see the animals which are not identical. And to exhibit that particular characters, so it is very complicated, and we have certain distribution patterns. So this irregularity is mainly governed by several factors. So this is by stopping the migration. If every animal migrates to other continent and they get adjusted to the nature, so we can see uniformity all around the world. But that we cannot see. We can see only some type of life form only in certain region. This is by stopping the migration of the animals. So this is by certain barriers. So what are the different types of barriers? So barriers to dispersal are mainly, it may be either vast tract of territory inhospitable to the species, or narrow bands of environment that may act as a narrow fences preventing the species migration to new region. So mainly this can be of 3 types: physical barrier, climatic barrier, and biological barrier. So physical barriers include topographical barriers, like large mountains or large bodies of water and land masses, like oceans, seas, very big water bodies. Then impurity and lack of salinity in the seawater. There is no salt content, and there is a impurity, more impurity is seen. Then vegetative barriers, so lack of food, okay. Then sheer distance, so all the distance, so all these factors, they contribute, they will stop the animals from migrating from one region to another, because they cannot cross all these barriers, okay. Next, climatic or ecological barriers, which includes temperature, means each animal is adjusted to particular type of temperature. So it cannot go and settle down in another temperature. Then moisture content in the air. And then is amount of light. So some countries have light only for some, means sunlight only for some portion of of the year. Whereas some countries have sunlight throughout the year. And some forests, they are so thick or dense, you don't see any sunlight there. So like that, availability of light also. So all these are the climatic or ecological barriers. Then biological barriers, which are sedentary habit. That means some animals, they won't tend to move very quickly, or they don't distribute. So then home range or territory, they will make a comfort zone. Okay, only in that particular region only they will be moving. Okay, so that these are the biological barriers. Then means of dispersal. Suppose some of them are distributed throughout certain continent. Like if you see elephants, you can see both in India, then Africa, like that you can see some animals which you can see in many countries or many continents. So how the dispersal has happened? This may be due to natural rafts or driftwoods. Like we'll have some woods which will be floating on the water. So maybe uh, because of that, some animals which are just floating, through floating, they might have reached some other region. Then wind, okay. Then storms. During storms also, they might be migrated to some other region. Then land bridges. If there is any bridge through which they can pass. Then transportation by animals capable of flight. That means with the birds, okay, they might carried some insect or something, and they might have transported them. Or human agency, means through human beings. Human beings, they purposefully transport the animals from one region to another region. Then there are two theories for this distribution. One is continental drift hypothesis and center of origin hypothesis. So in the continental drift hypothesis, this was proposed by Wagner. According to him, 125 million years ago, Earth is a single mass. Okay, so it is a single bit. So that period is called as Cretaceous period. And this, we have plates below the earth. So because of the movement of the plates, this single landmass was divided or fragmented into continents. And those animals which are living in particular region, they have distributed into their respective continents. This is continental drift hypothesis. And another is center of origin hypothesis. So according to this theory, all the animals or all the species have evolved from a single point, okay, from a center of the origin. And then because of their high reproductive capacity, they have distributed among various continents. Now, we have already discussed about the geographical distribution, bathymetric distribution, and geological distribution. So this, all the animals which either land or on the water, whatever the animals which are living in these regions, they can be divided into two, in space and in time. So in the space, the distribution can be geographical, that is horizontal, and bathymetric distribution, that is vertical. So in time, they may be durational distribution, means in the history, how the animals are distributed. So first is geographical distribution. So here, if you see, there is no place where there is no life form, one or the other. maybe bacteria or maybe fungus, animals, plants, human beings, some or the other life form is distributed all over the earth. And we have tropical forests, high mountains, hot drought places, deserts, cold places like polar regions. So the temperature or the conditions are also not uniform along the world. So here, this geographical distribution means it is the horizontal, means in the water and in the continents, how in each region, how the animals are distributed. So we have already discussed like why these animals has to be distributed in different places, because first is struggle for existence. As their population increases gets increased, there will be scarcity of food, shelter, etc. So they need to migrate to some other places for their food and shelter. And also, during the process of evolution, they have to mate with the other. If there are only few animals of their own species, they should propagate their next generation. So for that, they will start mating with the like nearby species. Okay, so that we'll get a new form of animals. So for all these things, they have to migrate. And then changing in climatic conditions. So if there is any change in, if the climate becomes unfavorable, they may extinct. So they have to move to another climate or another region where the climate is favorable. Then topological barriers, mainly the barriers we have already discussed. Mainly topological barriers means mountains and all these things. Like we have high and extensive mountains like Alps. So therefore, we can see to the north of the Alps, we have some type of species, and to the south of the Alps, we have different type of species. The migration is not possible because of this mountains. Then climatic barriers. So we have temperature. So already the animals, their physical adaptation and behavioral adaptations might have been done already. Therefore, they cannot change now. Okay, so because of that climatic barrier and vegetative barrier, they will have some type of food habits. So now, as the availability of that particular food is not there, so they cannot move to some other places. Then large water bodies, if there is any like freshwater fishes, they prevent migration. But some other fishes like salmon, they can migrate into seawater to freshwater and freshwater to seawater. So that means some animals they cannot go from seawater to freshwater, okay, because of salt concentration. Then impurity and lack of salinity of seawater. So it is an effective barrier for the dispersal of certain marine animals like starfishes, sponges, corals. They require maximum purity and salinity of water. Then how they get dispersed means land bridges, like in Panama, we see the land bridges. It is a country that links Central and South America. So you can see like a bridge through which many animals like horses, wolves, cats, they can migrate. Then natural rafts or driftwoods are nothing but the floating material through which they can migrate from one region to another. Like polar bear, they will be carried by a floating ice. We can see large blocks of ice which will be floating. So on that, the polar bears will be residing. So along with this block, they will be migrated to another region. Then favoring gales. So many animals like insects, birds, bats, they will be dispersed by strong winds. For example, European birds are transported to America by Iceland and Greenland. Through wind, these insects, birds will be transported. Then bathymetric distribution is nothing but a vertical distribution. That means from the bottom of the sea to the top of the mountain. So how this distribution? There will be a variety of changes we can see. So here, that means from the highest alpine peak to the abyssal depth of the sea. So first main change is alteration is breathing. So if animal is completely terrestrial, they will get their oxygen or respiration from the air, and they will have lungs. And those which are residing in the water, they will get the oxygen from water, and they will have gills. So that means these animals cannot survive in water, like land animals cannot survive in water, and aquatic organisms cannot survive on the land. So they will have their own machinery for the breathing. And substratum. So animals which live on land, they walk. And those which live in water, they swim. So this capability also varies according to the place where they are living. And the animals which are living in the water, they will have some limiting factors like fresh water or salty water and water pressure. So on distribution, on basis of the distribution of animals in marine water, there are two types, two zones: pelagic zone, benthic zone. Pelagic zone means above the ocean floor. Okay, so they are called pelagic, like planktons, nectons, large swimming water. Okay, then benthic means to the sea bottom. Okay, very bottom where some animals will live. There are three realms of the bathymetric. So they are terrestrial, then freshwater inhabiting, which are called limnobiotic, then halobiotic, which are marine, seawater. Geobiotic or terrestrial means it will be usually on the alpine to lowland. So completely the animals which are present on the land, they are all belonging to geobiotic. Then limnobiotic means which are living on the fresh water, which will be limiting. That means in small rivers, ponds, lakes. So they are limited. Then halobiotic or marine. So this is important. And here we have contrasting characters. Means within marine water, you have variety of species. One is strand, then flat sea, and two other. So strand means which is in the tidal zone, which is that is the top layer of the ocean, which can breathe both like terrestrial animals as well as aquatic animals, because they are at the top most part of the ocean, like mollusks, which we can easily access. Then flat sea, which is around the area of 200-meter depth, which have light, good amount of light and vegetation. And we have some animals also in that region, like corals, sea anemones, sponges, etc. Then pelagic realm means which are lying below, like planktons, nectons, all this. Then abyssal realm means which is very bottom. There is no very low temperature, high pressure, like some carnivorous marine animals, and the animals which feed on the dead material, they will be seen in this region. Now, the bathymetric region means where we can distribute the animals based on the time point. That means if we distribute the time point since the origin of Earth till date, that some regions are called, major divisions are era. Era is the name of duration of time that indicate the degree of evolutionary advancement. Then eras are divided into periods, then epochs. So the eras are Archaeozoic and Proterozoic era, which is called era of or age of unicellular life, where animals are low organization, and it is called age of primitive marine invertebrates. We can see sponges, algae, all these in that era. Then Paleozoic era, it is the age of fishes. In this we have different periods. Cambrian period, where vertebrates like fishes evolved from invertebrates. Then Ordovician period, where cephalopods, tribolites, then fishes have evolved. Silurian and Devonian period, where scorpion, amphibians, and terrestrial vertebrates evolved. And Mississippian, Pennsylvanian, and Permian period, where sharks were dominant in the Mississippian period, and insects, snails, and amphibians were evolved. Then Mesozoic era, which is the age of reptiles. In this we can see two periods. Triassic and Jurassic period, where fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals are evolved, and reptiles were dominant. Flying reptiles like birds were also present. Then Cretaceous period, where flowering plants have arisen, and mammals, small mammals, then birds, they got teeth. So all this happened in this. Then Cenozoic era, which is the age of mammals. In this we have different epochs. Then Paleocene epoch, where dinosaurs were extinct, which are replaced by mammals. Then Ecocene epoch, where warm-blooded animals have evolved. Oligocene, Miocene, and Pliocene epoch, which is a glacial age, which is very cold. Evolution of mammals. First man like apes, placental mammals got diversified. Then new land bridges were formed, and many migrations have happened. Then Pleistocene and Psychozoic epoch, which is the age of man, where some animals have evolved in warmer interglacial areas, and the age of man has begun. That is the mentality, everything got evolved in this region. And these animals are not continuously distributed, or sorry, not uniformly distributed. So they are restricted to particular regions based on their climate, food, and shelter. So based on this, there are four distributions: continuous, discontinuous, bipolar, and isolated distributions. So here wide range of animals are distributed through the world. They are continuous distribution, and they are called eurytopic animals. That means those animals you can see in every continent, everywhere. So they means they don't have any particular type of temperature. They don't require a particular type of food like that. So they are adapted to all kind of environmental conditions. They might be moved or migrated through flight or rafting or swimming, like rats, bats, hawks, cockroaches, flies, lizards, mosquitoes, snakes, and man. Okay, they can travel long distances. Cosmopolitan distribution means only in in all climatic zones, these animals can be seen, like hawk. Then circumpolar distribution means only in certain poles, like polar bears, either North Pole or South Pole. Then circumboreal or circummenstrual distribution means circumboreal is throughout northern hemisphere and circummenstrual throughout southern hemisphere. So it is a continuous belt, but based on the hemisphere, they are divided into two. Then discontinuous distribution means it is broken kind of distribution. That means in one area we see some animals. So same animals you can see in some other very distinct region. Okay. Like there might be four reasons for this. Means like, okay, from one region, how can they migrate to another? Okay, and if they migrate also, we should see the distribution continuously. But here, the distribution is not continuous, random distribution. So that might be because different routes, like by swimming or through rafting, they might have migrated, or they might have previously distributed all over, but some areas may be submerged, or because of that, the population got separated. Or continental drift, as we have already discussed, like the whole earth is a single piece. It was a single piece, and it was separated into continents. Because of that also, maybe some animals got isolated. And some areas, the animals may got extincted because of the climatic condition. So only in some portions we see this distribution. Then discontinuous distribution examples are peripatus. There are 75 species distributed all over Asia, East Indies, Australia, New Zealand, Africa, and America. Then alligators, seen in America and Asia. And elephants, we see in Africa, India, Burma, Thailand, and Sri Lanka. So these are like only random distribution. We don't see in continuous distribution. Then bipolar distribution is nothing but only in the poles, like polar bear, they are restricted. Penguins, okay, only in that particular region we see. Like in polar bears, we see in northern pole. Penguins are restricted to Antarctica region. Then isolated distribution means they are isolated only to particular continent or particular region. Like we can see Spinodon is a reptile seen only in New Zealand. Then Protothera, which is duckbill, is seen in Australia. Metatheria, which are kangaroos, okay, which are seen only in the Australia. So already we have discussed, like we have many factors like physical factors, physical barriers, climatic barriers, and biological barriers. Now we will look into the continental drift. So what is this continental drift theory means? Alfred Wegener, he first given the theory of continental drift. So he gave that it is a single bit which is called Pangea. So according to this theory, the continents were once a single landmass. It broke apart into different continents and moved to the present locations. And the Pangea is the name given to this single landmass which was present 200 million years ago. So what are the evidences which he presented is, one is when now if we keep all the continents together, we will get a single perfect landmass, like a puzzle. Now if we see in the puzzle, we have small pieces. When we keep everything in an order, we will get a single image. So in the same way here, now if we keep all the continents together, we will get a single bit. Okay. Then another is fossils. So this fossil, they are the remains of the living things. They have lived some million years ago. We saw now the similar fossils were discovered in matching coastlines of different continents. That means in the different continents, now we are getting the fossils. That means that animal was some time back, they have lived in that continent. So how they have migrated, we don't know. That means it might be a single landmass and these animals have distributed all over the earth. Okay. Then we can see this type of migration, like we'll get a route how they got migrated, all this. And another is mountains. We can see the same type of mountains in different continents, like ranges in Canada are matching with the Norway and Sweden, which are Europe. Then Appalachian mountain it can match with the UK mountain. So that means even the mountains, which are they're similar in their nature. Then another is climatic evidence, such as glaciers, okay, which are now close to the equator. When we match them, we can see a similar type of, like we have got a puzzle, right? So it is a single bit and we got a similar type of climate in that particular region. Now they got divided and now if we see based on each continent, we can see some part is cold and some part is hot, like that we'll say. But as a whole, if we keep the entire world together, now we can see similar kind of climates in this. Now to prove this, they have used satellites to measure the movement of the continents. So even the earth will be continuously moving. So the continents also, now also they will be moving. But this will take a long time to segregate, but they'll be under continuous motion. So that was measured by the satellites. Okay. Then another one is the Wallace line. So Alfred Wallace, he is one of the zoo biogeographer. He, in his book of Distribution of Animals in 1876, he summarized how the animals are distributed. So he gave one line which is called Wallace line. His main interest was to study vertebrate fauna in Indo-Malayan region. And he gave a line, okay, I will discuss, okay, Wallace line in his book. So to the Wallace line, left side you have Oriental region and right side you have Australian region. So this is imaginary line which is separating Oriental and Australian biotas. So this is extending from Bali to Lombok Islands between Philippines and Sulawesi. So he proposed that to the left side you have Oriental and right side you have Australian regions, and even the animals, plants were distributed accordingly. So this imaginary line, like our equator, longitude, latitude, it is also imaginary line, which is called Wallace line. So this is about Wallace line and the animal distribution along the different continents, and what are the factors which have become barrier for the migration, and how migration may be possible from one region to another. So we will discuss the another topic in the next class. Okay, thank you.